And hey there, welcome to the Blathering Boomer Tuesday night live stream. You probably all recognize that music, The Godfather. Yeah. So let me start with just a little thing about that had nothing to do with politics. Why I opened with the Godfather theme song. So Friday was Valentine's Day, and that's a very special day for so many people. And yeah, I mean, my Valentine's 2,000 miles away. I sent the good stuff to her. I did send the good stuff, and she seemed to like it. That's all good. But the other thing about Valentine's Day 2025, for those of you who care about these things, it was a new season of Yellow Jackets, which fans of that show have been looking forward to for going on 2 years now. I'm addicted to the show. I can't help it. I'm so addicted to the show that I paid for Paramount Plus Showtime so I could watch the new season of Yellow Jackets on Friday. However, DirecTV didn't show the new episodes till Sunday. I don't know what's going on with that. I was able to watch it on my computer. It's not the same. Anyway, so I tuned into Showtime on my DirecTV. And what do I see? The Godfather Part 3. Now, I watch a lot of geek videos. I watch a lot of commentaries on videos and, the shows that I watch. I've probably got in 2 seasons of Yellow Jackets, I must have 20 hours of theories and recaps and all this stuff. And I watch a lot of Godfather videos talking about the Mo Green thing, and they take deep dives into this and that. One of the things I've seen lately, because hey, 1990, I'm sitting in the movie theater, and all of a sudden I hear that theme song with the black thing with the puppets. I got really excited. There's going to be a Godfather 3, Godfather Part 1 and 2. Godfather 1 was brilliant. Godfather 2 was really good, except honestly, it's kind of like the present day stuff in Las Vegas wasn't as good as the stuff that was from the book. And Godfather 3, to be honest, really was a very big disappointment. I dare say it sucked. And it kind of reminds me of, in a way, the last season of Game of Thrones, the last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones, when those two showrunners ran out of source material and started flying on their own, writing their own stuff. Didn't work. And Godfather 3 didn't work. Well, lately on these geek videos that I watch, they've been talking about how they've revamped Godfather 3. And it's no longer called Godfather 3. It's called Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone. So, and supposedly they recombobulated it, rematriculated it. They did all this and all that, re-edited it, changed the sequence of events, made it be more. Anyway, I'm looking for Yellow Jackets, and I find Godfather 3. So I decide I'm going to watch Godfather 3. I want to give Godfather Coda a chance to be in the same conversation as Godfather 1, Godfather 2. Well, let me save you some time. It's not. It sucks. It doesn't suck as much as the theatrical release of Godfather 3, but it still sucks by Godfather standards. And again, when it was based on what's actually in the book, it was a great movie franchise. But hey, if you can get it for free, if you already got Showtime because you want to see Yellow Jackets and you want to watch Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone, knock yourself out. There's probably better things you could do with 2.5 hours of your time. It's 2.5 hours I'll never get back. But in a way, I'm glad I did it because now I could say I've watched all of it. Okay, so lot going on. Lots and lots going on. I got into a bit of a I try to be as moderate as I can in these live streams. So I really do try to not be too savage and temper my opinions and not go nuts. And last week's podcast, I thought was no exception, but I got into a bit of a squabble with an old friend that I know for 42 years who might actually be one of the 4 people watching right now. Whatever, he'll see it, he won't see it. It doesn't matter. We got into a bit of a squabble. It was unfortunate. Started out pretty nasty, bit unhinged, I dare say, but ended on a good note and ended with the question that because at the end of these arguments, and I have them all the time with people, and then we get to the part where this isn't personal, it's just political, and we say nice things about each other, and that's how this one ended. And but the question he had was, he says, I have a heart of gold, and how could somebody like me vote for Trump? I used to have the same kind of question back when I first started watching independent media. There was this guy, H.A. Goodman. He was my first podcast. But I discovered clickbait because of him, because it was in the aftermath of the rigging against Bernie in 2016. And he'd have titles like Hillary Indicted or Bernie Wins Primary. Maybe not quite as extreme as that, but basically it was clickbait. And I'd watch his videos because I wanted to have hope. He was a total Bernie bro, really into Bernie, a lot of progressive ideas. And notwithstanding the clickbait, I enjoyed watching his show. He ended up becoming a Trump supporter in 2016. And I did not understand, how could a person who was for Bernie Sanders ever become a Trump supporter, ever? And I guess my friend of 42 years has the same question. So I'm going to try to explain that. And let me start with a little story from 1965, and please bear with me. This might be a long blather tonight because I have a lot I want to cover. Let me lay some topics on the table. I'm going to talk about professional wrestling. I'm going to talk about politics. I'm going to talk about the Jared Beck lawsuit. I'm going to talk about my song "You're Insane," Trump's first impeachment, Biden, a lot. But if you stick around to the end, if you want to skip the politics, skip to about like 5 minutes from the end, because there will be some gold, some platinum, some diamond, Valentine's Day language of love advice that I'm not going to comment on it now, but stick around to the end or skip all the political shit. Anyway, 1965, I'm 11 years old. Yes, I'm a boomer. I was 11 years old in 1965. My parents left me alone. I don't know if it's the first time, but I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with my parents and my sister. We had one TV, with the rabbit ears. So you had to move them around, or the vertical would go up and down. You had to stop the vertical. You remember what the TVs were like. So we had this one black and white TV in the living room, but parents are gone, sister's gone. I'm home alone. I have the TV to myself. What am I going to watch? So I picked up the TV guide. Remember when the TV guide was everything? I pick up the TV guide. What's on? I look, Channel 9 has got wrestling. And my grandfather was into wrestling. So I'm like, okay, sure. Let me check out wrestling, see what it's like. I had no idea what wrestling was all about. I figured it was boxing, except they don't wear gloves, whatever. So there's a fight, Smasher Sloan against some other guy. Smasher Sloan seemed like he's fighting a little bit dirty. No big deal. Next match is Arnold Skolin, the golden boy from White Plains. White Plains, Rollo. Yeah, golden boy from White Plains, Arnold Skolin. And he's fighting Crazy Luke Graham. And I'm watching this match, and the Scolin's bouncing off the rope, and all of a sudden, this big guy with bleach blonde hair turns out to be Dr. Jerry Graham, Crazy Luke's brother. He trips Arnold Skolin. At times, they're just ganging up on him. I'm going nuts. I can't believe what's going on. I'm 11 years old. I'm watching wrestling for the first time. I jump up on the couch and I'm screaming, Arnie, kill him, Arnie, Crazy Luke, because the crowd would chant Crazy Luke, and Crazy Luke would go, and go nuts. I'm buying into everything. I'm 11 years old. I'm buying into everything. So I'm jumping up and down on the couch, screaming, Crazy Luke, get him, Arnie, get him, Arnie. Finally, Bruno Sammartino came to the rescue. That's not the point. The point is, my parents came home. They put their key in the door, and they hear this screaming coming from the living room. They're like panicked, like, what the hell happened when we were gone? They walk in, and they see me jumping up and down on the couch, screaming, "Crazy Luke, crazy Luke." That was the beginning of wrestling for me. Now, I've just established that Crazy Luke and his brother Jerry, by the way, they're not really brothers. The Graham brothers were not really brothers. I don't think either one of them was actually named Graham, but for the purpose of this conversation, we're going to keep it that. And I am getting somewhere. I am going to get to politics from all this professional wrestling talk. So the Graham brothers, they were bad guys. They were bad guys. Why were they bad guys? They were bad guys because they cheated. Because in a wrestling match, it's supposed to be 1 against 1, not 2 against 1, sometimes 3 against 1. So, it goes on and on. I'm watching wrestling. It's a couple of weeks later, maybe a couple of months later. I don't know exactly when it was, but now I'm into wrestling. I'm like, wow, But Bruno Sammartino was my hero. I actually had a poster of Bruno Sammartino on my wall when I was 11 years old. So the Graham brothers are bad guys. They might have been tag team champions. I'm not really sure. One week they had a tag team match, the Graham brothers against Waldo Von Erich and Gene Kiniski. Now, those of you who've seen the Iron Claw might think that the Von Erichs were good guys. Waldo Von Erich and Fritz Von Erich weren't actually brothers, except they were supposedly brothers in the wrestling world. And the children, Kerry and David and the other one, those are Fritz's actual children. Waldo Von Erich had nothing to do with them. Waldo Von Erich was a bad guy. He wore a Nazi uniform. He did that, and his finishing move was the Prussian power dive and the Blitzkrieg. This was the mid 60s. World War II at the time was only 20 years ago. So just like the Iron Sheik was the big bad guy in the 80s, Waldo Von Erich was the big bad guy in the 60s. His partner, Gene Kiniski, total maniac, total scare. I had bad dreams about the guy. And like that John Lennon song, "Remember When You Were Small, How People Seem So Tall." So I'm 11 years old. I keep saying that, but I was 11 years old. Gene Kiniski was this scary giant. He gave me bad dreams. So the Graham brothers, bad guys, have a tag team match against Waldo Von Erich and Gene Kiniski. And Von Erich and Kiniski were way dirtier than the Graham brothers, way dirtier. They played every nasty trick in the book. They had their manager, Wild Red Berry, hit him with a cane in the corner. It was ugly. It was ugly. So up until that match, wrestling, and one of the things I liked about it was every match I saw was, you knew who to root for. It was a good guy against a bad guy, and the bad guy was the guy who cheated, and the good guy was the guy who fought clean. Well, now for the first time, I'm seeing bad guy against worse guy, not bad guy against good guy, bad guy against worse guy, because the Graham brothers were bad guys, but Von Erich and Kiniski were so bad that that you had to root for the Graham brothers. So how does this fit into politics? We get to 2015. Now, mind you, before 2015, the only thing I really cared about politically was my desire to not see us fall under the control of the religious right. I was a firm believer then and now in the separation of church and state. So my only activities before 2015 were the Nobody Tour in 1984, and I did attend an impeached Nixon rally in 1974 when I was in college, because I thought at the time Nixon was a bad guy. Whatever I think about Nixon, he's not the main part of this conversation, but Nixon had just fired Archibald Cox. Watergate was being invested. Archibald Cox got really close to the truth. Nixon responded by firing him. I freaked out thinking our democracy was done, took to the streets with a bunch of other college kids. It's the only demonstration I ever went to. And then the next political thing I did was 1984 when I went on the Nobody for President tour. So I never really was concerned about politics. But then in 2015, shit started really hitting the fan. Trump goes down the escalator. It looked very, very strange. What is this? Donald Trump, and I know if you watch this, Donald Trump's father was my father's landlord and then my landlord when I took over the apartment. At some point, Donald probably was my landlord, but old Fred Trump was definitely the landlord when I was a kid. I lived in that apartment until I was 28 years old, though, not counting 4 years of college, 1 year in prison, and a summer in Greenwich Village. Separate stories. Anyway, never liked Trump. I couldn't believe. I never watched The Apprentice. My and my mother loved him. I don't know why, because she hated him when he was our landlord. But he's running for president? Are you kidding? Who the hell? The only thing I knew about him was that he was suing Bill Maher for $1 million because Bill Maher, like in 2014 or so, called Trump an orangutan and maybe had some visuals to go with that. So that's what I knew about Trump. He goes down the escalator. He's running for president. There's 20 Republicans. It's a red clown car. And meanwhile, on the other side, basically you had Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. And Hillary Clinton was an overwhelming favorite. But I knew of Bernie Sanders. I knew he was a senator from Vermont who had a lot of very progressive ideas, championed the civil rights, got himself in trouble at civil rights demonstrations, won a Senate seat without the endorsement of a major political party. Very impressive stuff. I've always liked third parties. I was very, very happy when Jesse Ventura became governor of Minnesota. Anyway, so I'm thinking, and Trump, at the first debate, they say, raise your hand if you'll support the eventual nominee. Everybody raises his hands except the guy in the middle, Donald Trump. It's on. And and the debates were nasty and divisive. I'm like, wow. The Republican Party is going to implode. I mean, it looked for all the world like it was going to be Jeb Bush against Hillary Clinton. But Trump started gaining momentum, and it got nasty and personal. And Marco Rubio was talking about Donald Trump's hands being too small, meaning something else was too small. And Ted Cruz, and then we got Lion Ted and Little Marco, and the name calling was absurd. And meanwhile, it seemed like Bernie and Hillary were having nice, fact-driven, polite debates. So I'm thinking, okay, well, 8 years of Bush, we got us Obama, and now after 8 years of Obama, I'm ready to keep on going with this. I don't want the Republicans back. So I prospered during Bill Clinton's presidency, and Bill Clinton balanced the budget. And he played a mean saxophone. I was okay with the thought of Hillary Clinton becoming president. And I was very okay with the thought of Bernie Sanders becoming president. So I supported Bernie Sanders, but Hillary was like my saver wager. Like, in case the main bet doesn't work, here's my other bet to make a profit in racetrack terms. Well, we know what happened. We do know what happened. The Democrats were the ones who imploded. They cheated. Hillary could have won the nomination without cheating. Well, unless you consider superdelegates to be cheating, which I do. But they didn't have to do the things they did, limiting the debate schedule and putting the thumb on the scale. There were all kinds of shenanigans. I don't remember the specifics of it, but I do know for sure that there were enough shenanigans that Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigned in disgrace as the chair of the DNC. And Tulsi Gabbard, the vice chair, resigned months before when she saw the corruption. And she said that as vice chair, I opened up my podcast last week with Tulsi's speech, resigning from the vice chair. She was pretty not savage about it. She wasn't talking about the corruption. She was just saying, as vice chair of the DNC, I have to be neutral, and I'm not neutral. I support Bernie, so I'm going to resign as vice chair of the DNC and support Bernie Sanders. And she did. Well, when Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigned in disgrace, Hillary Clinton didn't denounce the cheating. Instead of denouncing the cheating, she doubled down and she made Debbie Wasserman Schultz her honorary campaign manager. And at that moment, it was no longer good guys and bad guys, with the Democrats being the good guys and the Republicans being the bad guys. And in that very moment, with that hubris, with that arrogance, with that clearly thinking none of the people matter, the Democrats became worse guys. The Republicans were still the Graham brothers, and Donald Trump was still kind of freak. And my opinion in 2016 was that anybody supported Trump must have either been a NASCAR fan, a frat boy, or some religious right maniac, and he had no chance of winning. Whoever the Democrat was going to beat him. But I didn't want it to be Hillary. No, they really lost me. And I'm thinking, you know what? If they lose to Trump, serves them right. Serves them right. Trump is the consequence. Trump and Trump's the consequence for the Democrats and their shenanigans. And sure enough, that's what happened. Well, in the aftermath of all that, a lawyer named Jared Beck sued the DNC, and basically on behalf of the Democrat Party itself, on behalf of Democrat voters. Because, mind you, that happened in 2016. The Democrats were even worse. Well, arguably worse in 2020, and definitely worse in 2024. When's the last time the rank and file of the Democrats, meaning the voters, chose their nominee? The last 3 Democrat nominees have all been chosen by party insiders. So Jared Beck did a lawsuit, and let me see a little bit of Jared Beck. And here we go. Here comes Jared Beck talking about the defense that the Democrat Party laid down, defending their right to have party insiders choose the nomination.
Different message now. What is their defense now?
Well, they have a number of arguments that they've put forth, and we went through those on Tuesday. 2 of them stick out in my mind because they're very, well, I would use the word bold to describe them. I don't think they're supported by the case law, and I think they're very, very disturbing. Just the fact that the DNC is relying on these positions. But the first argument they're making is that they don't believe there's a legally enforceable obligation to run the primaries in a fair and impartial manner. And in fact, the lawyer for the DNC said in open court last week, as an officer of the court, that in his view, the DNC could go into smoke-filled rooms, smoke cigars, pick the candidates between them. These are, the leaders of the DNC smoking cigars, and we'd have no legal recourse whatsoever if they did that.
So that was their defense. We can go, we're a private company. We're under no obligation to have anybody but our insiders choose the nominee. And we could go into a cigar smoke filled back room and choose the nominee. And remember that thought about the cigar smoke filled back room, because it's a line in one of my songs, but I'm not there yet. So that was the beginning of my DemExit, because I could not abide by the cheating. And shortly after, before Bernie dropped out, but when it was looking really bad, Wavy Gravy turned 80, and there was a big birthday bash for Wavy up in a field up in Northern California. Steph and I went to it, and one of the speakers was Ben Cohn from Ben and Jerry's. He gave a stirring pro-Bernie speech. So there I was among my old hippie tribe, and we're all cheering Ben Cohn, and we're all ready to, they could fight the good fight for Bernie. Well, that's so I thought anyway. Because I was hoping that he would take this all the way to convention, but he didn't. So a month later, I'm up at the property, and I ran into Wavy Gravy. Wavy Gravy was nobody's fool. He was our leader, or our non-leader of the 1984 Nobody for President tour. And I went, Wavy, because to me it seemed pretty clear. Hillary against Trump. If there was ever a year for Nobody for President, that was the year, right? And Wavy said to me, no. I got a phone call from Jesse Jackson, and he said we have to defeat Trump at all costs. That should have been my first indication that something was amiss. But so there was no Nobody tour that year. I was never going to vote for Trump, but I couldn't vote for Hillary. So I voted for Jill Stein. And as I've said many times, I got raked over the coals for that. Facebook was brutal. I was verbally lynched on Facebook more than once, told grow up, be realistic, get a lot. I mean, all I don't, this, you can go on my Facebook page and look back at some of the posts from the spring and summer of 2016. But my thinking was, after the 2 conventions were over and it was clearly Hillary versus Trump, okay, so it's not a year for a Nobody tour, but if there's ever a year for a third party, this is the year for a third party. So, I looked I like the libertarians. What's not to like about libertarians? Libertarians are cool. You know, unfortunately, they get in their own way. They never get anywhere. And Gary Johnson shot himself in the foot with the whole "What's Aleppo" comment, because he could have gotten over 5%, but he tanked after the whole Aleppo conversation. So who was left but Jill Stein? And so that's who I decided to vote for. And my contention was, why should I not vote for the person that I like the best, as opposed to I have to vote for Hillary because that's the only way to stop Trump. Trump was stopped. Trump didn't have a shot. And also, it doesn't matter. I live in California, so no matter what happens, my vote on the presidential election never counts anyway. So I voted for Jill Stein, and people to this day aren't speaking to me. Lots of them, lots of people I was very tight with in the 80s, how aren't speaking to me to this day because I voted for Jill Stein. I was even called a misogynist. Yes, I was called a misogynist in spite of voting for a woman. So skip ahead to 2020, and there's this woman, Congresswoman from Hawaii, who I'd heard of because on one of the old H.A. Goodman podcasts, he said, there's only 3 Democrats I trust: Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, and Nina Turner. I'd only heard of one of the 3 at the time. So I do a little bit more research into Tulsi Gabbard. That's when I find out she had stepped down as the vice chair of the DNC because of the shenanigans. And then Standing Rock happened. And I've always had I've been very, very supportive for a very long time of Native Americans and their causes. I thought Standing Rock was horrible, shooting water cannons at people who were just trying to save their environment, a sacred land. It was really wrong. And then this woman, this Tulsi Gabbard, she organizes a group of vets, and they go out there in sub-zero temperature, and they stand physically in front of the water protectors, shielding them from the rubber bullets and the water cannons. People were blinded. People were really badly hurt. But I'm like, wow, this woman, she put her power, she sacrificed power for principle by stepping down as vice chair. And now she's out there putting her body in jeopardy by supporting Standing Rock. This is somebody I want to follow. So I started following her on Twitter. I'm hearing her say things. I'm replying, "Oh, Tulsi, you'll never be president. You make way too much sense." Well, then it turns out that she decides to run for president. And they did this thing in Hawaii called the Aloha Launch, where one of the people that she was in her command. She had 2 tours in Iraq, and she was a major at the time. So one of the people who was under her made a really good speech introducing her, and then she made this beautiful speech. I don't have a link to it now. It's kind of lengthy. I highly suggest you check out the Aloha Launch. When Tulsi announces that she's running for president, it's very moving, very stirring. And I want to say to the people who think that Tulsi is sold out or is an opportunist or stuff like that, she is the same Tulsi she's ever been. She's just wearing a different color. You know, the blue Tulsi and the red Tulsi are the same Tulsi. I completely agreed with her moving from Democrat to independent. I questioned it when she went from independent to Republican. I'm not ready to go that far myself, but I'm never going to run for office. Fact of the matter is, there is no way to succeed in national politics unless you're in a major party. So if that's opportunism, what are you going to do? I call it practicality. I'm not thrilled about it, but I definitely get it. And in the run up to the 2024 election, I'm like, there's no way in the world I'm voting for Biden, which morphed into there's no way in the world I'm voting for Kamala. I don't know if I can vote for Trump. Well, maybe if Tulsi's his running mate, I can vote for Trump, and then she's still running. She's still independent at that point. Then RFK starts getting momentum, and I started looking into RFK, and I'm like, okay, here we go again. We have somebody who's really good, and he's not completely nuts. The guy is principled. The 2 people that I'm talking about right now are the 2 politicians that I don't recall ever lying to me. If you can come up with an example of one of them actually lying, go ahead and send the link to me. on Twitter in a DM, UNG714, ugly nasty guy 714. I want to know if Tulsi or Bobby has actually lied to any of us. Anyway, we all know what happened in 2024. So, but after Beck's lawsuit and after Tulsi was cheated in 2020, because she ran a really good campaign, but what kept happening? Every time Tulsi, she got into a couple of debates. She torpedoed Kamala Harris. Harris was a front runner and went from and became a non-candidate before Iowa because Tulsi dropped some truth bombs on her that she couldn't deny and couldn't defend. And that was the end of Kamala Harris in 2020. But to keep Tulsi out of further debates, they kept changing the rules. And every time Tulsi had the number of unique donors that were required for her to be in a debate, or had certified polls showing her polling at least, I forgot what the percentage was, 3%, 5%, 1%, whatever it was. She kept on making the threshold, but then they kept on saying, well, that's not a valid poll. This poll doesn't count. Or, no, she doesn't need 50,000 unique donors. She needs 100,000 unique donors. And we'd scramble and get more donors. And we kept on meeting the new criteria. And they kept on keeping her out of debates. And finally, when COVID hit, she actually dropped out. So in the run-up to the 2020 election, my DemExit was complete. I felt the Democrats were irredeemable. I feel the Democrats are irredeemable. I feel the Democrats once were the better party. I used to support them for many, many years. And I wrote a song about how I felt about the Democrats. And there's a line in there inspired by Jared Beck's lawsuit. And if you don't mind, I'm going to play the song for you. And it goes like this. You used to be the party of JFK and FDR. You seem strategically sound to the naked eye, and I laughed at the red clown car. You had one guy in the White House who used to run a peanut farm, but when it was time for Hillary's coronation, you rigged that nomination, and you're insane. If you don't realize that we see right through you, it's quite plain that you have absolutely no ethics to you. You had my passionate support a dozen years ago. Looking back, I was quite naive. Oh, but hope and change made such a pretty pair. It was so easy to believe. But Assange and Snowden told the truth and destroyed his legacy. And where was he when Standing Rock was crying and folks in Flint were dying? And you're insane if you don't realize that we see right through you. It's quite plain that you have absolutely no ethics to you. Do you? Well, I hear you went out and picked Kamala in a cigar smoke-filled back room. Well, your arrogance and dirty tricks are gonna spell your party's doom. My vote is something to be earned, not bullied away from me. So kindly spare me your toxic voter shaming and constant Russiagating, and you're insane if you don't realize that we see right through you. It's quite plain that you have absolutely no ethics to you. Do you? Oh. Obviously, your sanity's been abandoned. You're still blaming Sarandon, and you're insane if you don't think that we see right through you. It's quite plain that you have absolutely no ethics, do ya? Well, you cheated Bernie in 2016 and Tulsi in 2020. And it's clear that all you care about is power and money. The mainstream press takes orders from you, and that includes TYT. So don't cry to me. If Trump gets 4 more years, I'll be laughing at your tears. And you're insane if you don't realize that we see right through you. It's so lame that you have absolutely no ethics, do ya? You're insane. You have no ethics, do ya? You're insane if you don't realize we see right through ya. And there you have it. And there you have it indeed. That was from 2020. I dare say it's aged well. It might be a bit savage for some people, but you know what? I stand by every word in that song. Every word. It's not okay. What the Democrats have done is not okay. And yes, a lot of what Trump is doing is also not okay. But it's relativity. It's which is worse, which is better. Make value judgments. But this is not good guy versus bad guy. This is bad guy versus worst guy. And I contend with every bit of gray matter in this aging boomer head of mine that the Democrats have become the worst guys. We're just so used to rooting for them and so used to thinking Trump is a freak. And yeah, like I said, in 2016, I thought his voter base consisted of NASCAR fans, frat boys, and the religious right. But that wasn't the case in 2024. There was a coalition. There was a coalition of a lot of people, many of whom are ex-Democrats. Trump himself is an ex-Democrat. Elon Musk is an ex-Democrat. And of course, Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard are also ex-Democrats. Could everybody be wrong? Well, obviously, there's a major hive mind going on in some areas where people are just freaking out, absolutely freaking out. Fear is just taken over. Oh, by the way, there is a Lord of the Flies spoiler coming up in the next minute or so. So if you haven't read or seen Lord of the Flies, stop watching for the next 5 minutes. But anyway, I saw the Grateful Dead probably 74 times. Grateful Dead's what drew me to the Bay Area. I know that I just jumped topics, but I'm going to go somewhere with this. One of the things that amazed me about a Grateful Dead concert was how the energy would feed itself. The Dead would get up there. They'd start a little slow. They always start a little slow. First set was always a little slow, but it would build up. By the second set, we know what would happen. First set would start a little slow, but then it would start picking up. And the energy coming from the stage shoots at the audience. The audience absorbs that energy, multiplies it, shoots it back at the Grateful Dead, who absorb it and multiply it. And by the time the drum solo is over and they're starting to play Sugar Magnolia and U.S. Blues and One More Saturday Night, or whatever, the place is just feverish, fever pitch of really, really good energy. Why do I bring that up? Because just like good energy could multiply itself, so could bad energy. People are absolutely freaking out right now. And I've said many times, like I say, fear is caution's dysfunctional cousin. That's the actual quote from me. I like quoting myself. What are you going to do? I'm the blathering boomer. I like to blather. And I like to blather out quotes of my own words, which I just did. What's happening now? The fear is that people are freaking out. What do they even? I guess they know what they're afraid of. And yeah, some bad things are happening. Yeah, Doge isn't doing a perfect job, but Doge is doing a very necessary job. I believe the figure I heard today was that $50 billion in waste has already been uncovered, and they've only been at it for a week or so. They are uncovering things left and right, and people are being exposed as being exceptionally corrupt. Exceptionally corrupt. Trump was impeached for making a phone call to what's his name? Zelensky, not Vladimir. Vladimir is Putin. Zelensky's the other guy. So Trump got impeached because he called up Zelensky to ask about an interaction between the vice president of the United States in 2014 and the Ukrainian government. And he got accused of quid pro quo. Jonathan Marcus says 4 trillion now, allegedly. Yeah, well, that's a pretty big number. That's 1/10 of our deficit. Anyway, Trump gets impeached for asking a question about, having a phone conversation, asking a question, which, by the way, they spoke to Zelensky afterwards, and Zelensky himself said it was a perfect phone call. But here's something that isn't perfect. And I'm going to share this real quick. And what's kind of disturbing about this, and it starts out kind of like Star Wars. In 2006, Ukrainian prosecutor General Viktor Shokin, in his investigation of corruption involving Burisma Holdings, a natural gas company, identified Hunter Biden as the recipient of over $3 million from the company. It goes on to say, and I'm going to have to pause it because this next one doesn't stay up for very long. Not wanting this corruption exposed, Joe Biden swung into action using U.S. loan guarantees as hostage while demanding Shokin be fired. Amazingly, Joe Biden now brags about his actions in this manner. Come on, Joe, where are you? Joe.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others, to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was 6 hours. I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Solid meaning he's not looking into your son. Now, my deeper dive into that is there were other issues with that prosecutor that go beyond the whole investigating Hunter Biden thing. But nevertheless, Trump is impeached because they're talking about a quid pro quo. Supposedly, if Zelensky didn't tell him what he wanted to know, the U.S. would withhold aid. What did Biden just do right in front of you? Right in front of you. Bragged about it. But yet, that's okay. Come on, guys, wake up. You don't have to love Trump. I don't love Trump. But at least open your eyes that the people that you're championing are not any better, maybe even worse. Because think about this, too. Now, there's supposedly a network of shell accounts that, because that Ukraine war, very early in the conflict, there was a peace treaty. And the U.S. and England torpedoed the peace treaty. I don't have receipts with me right now, but look it up. And if somebody wants to prove it, I will. There should have been peace. I believe Trump when he says Putin never would have invaded if he was the president. He would have worked it out. Is he trying to work it out now? Anyway, by that war continuing on and on and on, a lot of money went to Ukraine. In my last podcast, we talked about how $2 billion went to Ukraine supposedly, and Zelensky's only acknowledging receiving $75 billion, $125 billion just out there missing. There's a network of shell accounts leading to the Biden family. I know that's a very serious allegation, but I suspect it's all true. why do you think Joe Biden pardoned every member of his family? Because every member of his family was implicated in those shell accounts flowing money that we send to Ukraine, and it bounces back and goes into the pockets of people. It's really scary. So again, I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong and wrong, but to shove shit down my throat constantly, and tell me that, imply that I'm a bad person because I voted for Trump, and I voted for Trump, and if the election was next week, I'd vote for him again, because I don't agree with everything he's doing, but I like the concept of what he's doing. When I was in improv, I did improv in 1992, and I got the same exact note week after week. Great concept, poor execution. Same note week after week. So let me read to you something about DEI real quick. I saw this from a friend of mine, old Bay Area friend of mine on Facebook, and she posted a meme that said, DEI initiatives were not put in place to ensure lower qualified minorities could get hired instead of more highly qualified white people. It was put in place to ensure lower qualified white people were not hired instead of more highly qualified minorities. I'm going to read that again, just in case you were you're eating gummies or aren't paying attention. DEI initiatives were not put in place to ensure lower qualified minorities could get hired instead of more highly qualified white people. It was put in place to ensure lower qualified white people were not hired instead of more highly qualified minorities. And I don't disagree that DEI was put in place for a good reason. But just like the whole note that I would get in improv, great concept, but poor execution, because DEI has turned into something toxic. It's turned into something ugly. Like so many things that we deal with, maybe a good idea gets pushed too far in one direction, and then we have the pushback in the other direction, and maybe that pushback's too extreme. So yeah, maybe Doge is throwing. Hey, there's one thing I very much disagree. Apparently, some friends of our family. There's a Boys and Girls Club down in Orange County, and they're facing their funding being cut. Over I'm not sure what. Well, the thing of it is, I know for a fact that particular Boys and Girls Club, what they do is they take care of the boys and girls so the moms and dads can go to work. That is a worthy expenditure of our money, helping people help themselves. It's not giving welfare. It's giving people an opportunity for dignity and self-reliance. So I'm very much against the Boys and Girls Club losing their funding. And I'm sure there's lots and lots of other things that are losing funding that maybe should be getting funded. But there's a whole lot more, like 10, 20, 30, 100 times more that shouldn't be getting money, that is getting money. It has to stop. And the people screaming the loudest are the people who probably have the most to hide. So, and, in terms of Doge, there are some people that maybe you trust that are very much for Doge, for the concept of Doge. Why not? So let's hear from some people that you might trust a little more to talk about Doge. Here's one. I used to love this woman.
When that much money disappears, it's usually because somebody broke some laws somewhere. But if we don't look, if we don't ask, if we don't uncover it and make it all public, we'll never find out.
Here's another one.
The American people are entitled to transparency.
We can't sustain a system that bleeds billions of taxpayer dollars on programs that have outlived their usefulness or exist solely because of the power of politicians, lobbyists, or interest groups.
They're entitled to be able to figure out where their dollars are going, and they're entitled to accountability to make sure that we're using the dollars for what we said it was for.
We are going to go through our federal budget, as I promised during the campaign, page by page, line by line, eliminating those programs we don't need and insisting that those that we do need operate in a sensible, cost-effective way.
What should be easy is getting rid of the pointless waste and stupid spending that doesn't benefit anybody.
We hope to be instilling an entire new culture that not only our administration, but every succeeding administration will in fact pursue.
No amount of waste is acceptable, not when it's your money.
So yeah, why is it when Democrats want to balance the budget, when Bill Clinton balanced the budget, when Barack Obama and I guess Vice President at the time Joe Biden want to look into corruption and waste, that was okay, but now it's not, and the country is nearly $40 trillion in debt. I remember not that many years ago, really, we were freaking out because we were $8 trillion in debt. These things are out of hand. Holy cow. So let's give these guys a chance. Just because they wear red neckties doesn't mean they're bad guys. And by the way, just because somebody wears a blue necktie doesn't mean they're good guys. I think I had a lot more to get to. Oh, there was one very important thing. I promised this at the beginning. Okay. The Lord of the Flies spoiler. This is actually something I jotted down a couple of nights talking about the fear. People are freaking out about Doge, and there's fear like bouncing off of each other. And the fear goes unquestioned. It goes unchallenged. It pulsates inside the echo chamber and builds upon itself as people enhance and elaborate on their old fears, adding new ones that raise more eyebrows, and it brews and stews and marinates and cogitates until it reaches a fever pitch. And heaven help the contrarian who doesn't think there's a beastie on the island, because we all saw what happened to Simon when he discovered the true nature of the so-called Lord of the Flies. Simon knew there was never a beast. It was just the kids, but it still cost him his life. But now in 2024, there is a beast. There is a beast now. And the beast isn't any one person. The beast is greed. And the beast comes in all shades of red and all shades of blue. That was me. I actually wrote that last night when I was contemplating what I was going to say. And there it was. I had the right thing. Okay, I think I've covered just about everything except the thing that I promised at the very beginning. And here it's going to come. Here comes some absolute... Guys, pay attention. Guys, pay attention. Your life is about to change.
Going on Valentine's Day, I said I was going to give you some of my tips. And I will tell you that watching the Kardashians with your girl, I can only give you a perspective of a girlfriend or a wife. But this Kardashians, keeping up with the Kardashians, or just the Kardashians, I don't know, they renamed it, revamped it. I am telling you, sit there, don't say a word. You don't have to go to the Valentine's Day store. You don't have to get any rings, chocolate. Just sit there and let your wife, your girlfriend, watch the Kardashians. I am telling you, it puts them in some sort of trance. That show literally puts them in some sort of meditative state. And my Valentine's Day language of love advice for 2025. Yes, dear. Yes, sweetheart. You're right. Don't argue. You're not going to win. I know you think you're going to win. You're like, well, I don't have to compromise myself. Yes, you do. You need to compromise yourself. You're not going to win. You're not stronger than your wife. You're not smarter than your wife. You might think you're stronger than your wife. You might think you're smarter than your wife. And in a lot of other areas, you might be. You might be. But when it comes to this hand-to-hand combat, you're never going to win. The woman will always win one way or another. They shoot children out of their vagina. I don't care how much you bench press, how many burpees you do, where you got your MBA, where you got your degree. They shoot children out of their vagina. That alone separates. Okay, that alone, we never could. I don't care. You beat this one's ass. You kick this one's ass. You kick ass at work, and you're a man's man, and you're an alpha. None of that means anything in the language of love. Submit. The sooner you submit, the better off you will be. in your relationship with your woman. Women have different, suggestions. Women have different ways, things to talk about when it comes to men. When it comes to relationships, yes, babe, yes, dear, you're right. You must submit. The sooner you figure out that you must submit, the sooner you will be a happy, simple relationship. You keep fighting. You think this is Rocky 1? You think you're hitting beef like Rocky at the beginning of Rocky 1? You ain't. You're just hitting yourself. It's inevitable. It is inevitable. They will win. They will win. I don't care if it's the long con or the short con. They will win. Happy Valentine's Day. Fantastic Valentine's Day.
So there he was. I know Michael Rappaport's a bit of a goofball, but you know what? He's 100% right. I've been in 3 serious relationships in my 70 years on this planet. And I got to say, in all 3 cases, I don't think I ever won an argument. I might have thought I won a few times, but it was never worth the price I ended up paying. Even it's like Al Pacino says to Johnny Depp in the movie where he plays Lefty. What do you call it? Not Johnny Depp, but Donnie Brasco. He says, "Wise guy is always right. Even when he's wrong, he's right." Well, in this case, the converse is true. Guy's always wrong. Even when he's right, he's wrong. Michael Rappaport's right. Don't waste your energy trying to be right. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. They are tougher than us. They are stronger than us. They may or may not be smarter than us, but they're definitely more clever than us. Guys, listen to Michael Rappaport. He's right. It sucks. It really sucks. I'm not happy about it. He's right. Anyway, final thoughts on the whole. How does a decent guy with a golden heart vote for Trump? In 2020, the Hunter Biden laptop came out, and 51 intelligence agents signed an affidavit saying it was Russian disinformation. It wasn't Russian disinformation, but that was enough to get the entire story squashed. Twitter, at the time owned by Jack Dorsey, not Elon Musk, squashed every mention of the laptop. You didn't see it on mainstream media. And had the truth about the laptop come out, I believe Trump would have won in 2020. Now, maybe it's going to work out for the best because maybe we need him as president now more than before. Yeah, I know I just said that. What are you going to do? Because what was the alternative? You guys beat me up in 2016 saying I can't vote for a third party. Third parties have no chance. Third party, you're throwing a vote away. You got to vote for the lesser of 2 evils. That's what they kept on saying to me in 2016. You got to vote for the lesser of 2 evils. Well, and my retort was, but the lesser of 2 evils is still evil. And I have a chance to vote for somebody who's not evil. So I voted for Jill Stein. Now they're saying, so now what did we have? What in the world did the Democrats do this year? They lied for at least a year, 2, maybe 3 about Biden's mental acuity. The guy was not capable of running a campaign, let alone being president for 4 more years. They finally realized that after the debate. They pull him, they insert Kamala, whatever her name is. And that, again, party elites made that decision. It wasn't the populace. It wasn't the popular votes. I'm sorry. I can't and never will support a party that doesn't let the people decide who the nominee is. That alone should, if not turn you to the Republicans, I don't expect, it's a big leap. It's a really big leap going to the Republicans. And I'm not all in for the Republicans either. As I said earlier in the podcast, one of my big things is I'm very much against the religious right, and the religious right is all over the Republican Party. I don't abide any of that. I don't. But I'm only given 2 choices, and I think the Democrats are more evil than the Republicans. That is why I voted for Donald Trump this year. That is why I would vote for him again if the election was all of a sudden nullified and happen again next week. And then I'm rooting for him. Don't we want to know where our money's being spent? Billions, trillions, the number's staggering. Don't we want to find out if somebody's been robbing us? Don't we want to know? It's like so many things. And that was my thing about the whole DEI thing. I blathered myself into being sidetracked. DEI was a great concept, really good concept, but in the reality of it, what it became in the last 4 years was something it wasn't intended to be. Now it was causing people, it became reverse racism. That wasn't the original intention. The original intention was to give people a chance who weren't getting a chance, but it's gone too far. And now there's blowback, and the blowback might go too far, just like Doge might go too far. This is why I think Bill Clinton was a great president, because you didn't have that wah, back and forth. One side going too far, the other side overreacting, then that being overreacted to, back and forth. Bill Clinton was a moderate. Bill Clinton was a centrist moderate. He was right there in the middle, and it was a brilliant move on his part. And he balanced the budget. We actually had a budget surplus under Bill Clinton. So I don't approve of the extreme right. I don't approve of the extreme left. I'm sad because as a person who's considered himself a lifetime leftist, it saddens me that leftist has become a dirty word. But I get it, because the left has become really, really toxic. You can't reason with them. It's sad. And it's a lot of my friends. I'm not talking specifically about last week's squabble. I'm talking about my entire relationship with my Bay Area community and some others too, including some members of my family. I got unfriended by somebody in my family on Facebook, and I don't even post political on Facebook. So my final words are, again, I always say it, be kind to each other, listen to each other, give the other person a chance to speak. If you're going to have an argument, have substance. Don't just name call. Name calling doesn't get you anywhere. All name calling does is get the name call back at you, and one side just as bad as the other. Name calling doesn't further anything. So do your research, stay vigilant, stay aware, be cautious, speak cautiously, but don't let fear run your life. Don't let fear. I'll add one word to don't let fear run your life. Don't let fear ruin your life. The boomer has blathered. Have a great night. See you guys next Tuesday.